Welcome to video blog 3. Since the release of Blackfish in 2013, SeaWorld worked tirelessly to defend the allegations made by the documentary. These being that confinement causes unhappiness and aggressive behaviors in orcas. In the wild, they swim up to 100 miles per day, for which it's unfeasible in a concrete tank. They cannot express hunting tendencies and are just aggressive due to their captivity, so they react to trainers after decades of being in isolation. The matriarchal bonds are broken by a corporation that breeds the orcas to continue to reap profit from them, sending calves hundreds of miles across the country or even perhaps to another country from their families. Tilikum, the central character of Blackfish, is a prime example. As you can see from the image, he is a central character to almost all of the genes in the current orcas at SeaWorld. So 3 years after the release of Blackfish, on March 17, 2016, SeaWorld announced that the generation of orcas they currently have will be their last. They will end breeding of those in captivity, and they will not capture any more from the wild. The decision was brought about by a multi-platform distribution, media coverage, and activism. Check out the video they released.
Some say, free the whales. For them, nothing else is acceptable. But nothing could be worse for the whales. Most of the orcas at SeaWorld were born here. Sending them into the wild wouldn't be noble. It could be fatal. When they freed Keiko, the killer whale of movie fame, the effort was a failure and he perished. But we also understand that times have changed. Today, people are concerned about the world's largest animals like never before. So, we too must change. That's why the orcas in our care will be the last generation at SeaWorld. There will be no more breeding. We're also phasing out orca theatrical shows. They'll continue to receive the highest standard of care available anywhere. And guests can come to see them simply being their majestic selves, inspiring the next generation of people to love them as you do.
But what finally led them to pull the plug 3 years later, you may ask? Let's take a look at the media impact of Blackfish on SeaWorld. It was a combination of things, from grassroots and sustained activism to the emotion employed in the documentary. One of the most prominent factors was the amplified community and sustained grassroots activism. Since 1998, PETA has campaigned against SeaWorld. They've created both physical and digital social protests, according to the Huffington Post. For instance, at the 2014 Rose Bowl parade, PETA organized an anti-SeaWorld protest that was covered by major media outlets such as CNN. According to CNN, 19 people total were arrested for attempting to stand and stomp in front of the float to delay its progress. PETA created the site SeaWorldOfHurt.com, which I referenced several times. Before the film Blackfish, attracted 30 visitors per day, but after attracted 1 million per day in 2015. Their donations spiked from $4.5 million to $43 million in 2015, according to the LA Times. As I noted in video 2, the Oceanic Preservation Society, OPS, immediately backed Blackfish. They posted it through all of their communication channels, they even wrote an online open letter, and joined Blackfish filmmakers in many public statements. In addition to OPS and PETA, social media exploded about Blackfish from everyday citizens, animal activists, to celebrities. Jason Biggs, Olivia Wilde, Ewan McGregor, Alec Baldwin, and Jeffrey Ventre were among many that were outraged and took to social media after seeing the film. Specifically, Alec Baldwin and Jason Biggs were against the annual Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade SeaWorld float that was announced on September 24th. Macy's began receiving petitions, protests, and customer complaints to ban the float from the parade. They both tweeted about the float, and Alec Baldwin specifically talked to many news sources about his disapproval of the float. Baldwin also partnered with the ethical treatment of animals in leading an online campaign to get rid of the float and protested at Macy's New York flagship store. Macy's commented, has never taken on, promoted, or otherwise engaged in social commentary, political debate, or other forms of advocacy, no matter how worthy, continuously declining to comment further. Other celebrities have canceled concerts at SeaWorld. More specifically, 8 did around the time of the release. According to BuzzFeed, Martina McBride, Willie Nelson, and Barenaked Ladies were among those that decided to cancel their tour at the venue. According to IndieWire.com, Willie Nelson's spokesperson commented, "The SeaWorld show was planned long ago as an Orlando show. Had we known, we would have said no then. We said no today." Not only are celebrities commenting that they will no longer tour, visit, or endorse SeaWorld, schools and children are doing the same. Cited by CNN, students from Point Loma San Diego High School created a YouTube video in which they all vouched to not spend any more money at SeaWorld until the company makes changes. Another video shows a 5-year-old boy talking about how the film aggravated him to not visit SeaWorld for his class trip. David Johnson, a crisis communication expert, said these media circulations are really damaging. He continued to explain that SeaWorld could get along without entertainers, but images of children rejecting field trips and going to the theme park are much more troublesome. Even the new Finding Nemo sequel, Finding Dory, had anti-SeaWorld undertones, cited by thedodo.com.
Hi, my name is Cash, and I watched that SeaWorld movie with the orcas getting away from their mom. And that movie was called Blackfish. It made me really upset. It made my mom cry. SeaWorld is catching orca whales from the ocean. And they're saying, woohoo! But that's what I was going to say. I used to like SeaWorld, but now I don't like it. Even they're taking baby orcas from the mom to SeaWorld, and they're putting them in the little pools, but they need to be free out in the wild. And making the mom very sad. I do not like SeaWorld. It makes me very angry. They're doing the wrong thing, and we need to help them.
The cohesion of celebrity endorsements for Blackfish and organizations like OPS and PETA created a smart distribution strategy, according to the Huffington Post. From there, it was a strategic distribution of the documentary. After the film premiered at Sundance, Calperthwaite licensed the U.S. rights for the documentary to Magnolia Pictures and CNN Films, so not only for the theatrical run, but for TV distribution. This process highlights the increasingly popular distribution channels for documentaries in a contemporary marketplace. When CNN released the documentary on October 23, 2013, they did so in an unbiased way. They created a lot of buzz around the topic, as the Huffington Post put it, fired up a synergetic publicity and news media machine. CNN was unbiased by having an interview with a spokesperson from SeaWorld, delving deeper into the many facets of the issue and including one area of criticism around the lack of focus on marine conservation in aquatic parks. As I noted, CNN swept ratings for groups under 55. From there, Netflix released Blackfish, the documentary, in December 2013. Since the documentary has been viewed over 600,000 times, receiving a rating of 5 stars and becoming a Netflix suggested watch. The media coverage of the issue was immense. Both Calperthwaite and her team battled PR style against SeaWorld. In July 2013, SeaWorld released statements claiming misrepresentations in the documentary. All of the claims can be found at SeaWorldCares.com. An overview of these claims include 1. The Blackfish employed false and emotionally manipulative sequences concerning the collection/separation of killer whales. 2. That Calperthwaite talked to employees that hadn't worked at SeaWorld for 20 years or over. 3. That scientists in the documentary were animal rights activists. 4. That Blackfish spun Brancheau's death in order to advance anti-captivity. 5. That Tilikum is psychotic and aggressive. And 6. Finally, the facts about Tilikum were kept from trainers and that SeaWorld is indifferent about trainer safety. Overall, SeaWorldCares.com aimed to discredit that life at SeaWorld is harmful for killer whales and trainers. and that SeaWorld attempted to cover up facts about Brancho's death and the history of Tilikum. The statement was picked up by many media outlets and circulated severely, amplifying the public's awareness of Blackfish, so it didn't really help them. In a New York Times article, Michael Seepley wrote, "The exchange is now promising to test just how far a business can or should go in trying to disrupt the powerful negative imagery that comes with the rollout of documentary exposes." Another failed PR attempt for SeaWorld was the Orlando Business Journal poll. Cited by BuzzFeed, the poll asked if CNN Blackfish documentary changed their perception of SeaWorld. The results were unusual. 99% of the respondents claimed the film had done nothing to their perception of SeaWorld. The Orlando Business Journal investigated the results and found that 54% of the votes came from a single IP address, which belonged to SeaWorld. A spokesperson of SeaWorld, Fred Jacobs, responded, "SeaWorld Entertainment is headquartered in Orlando, and we have 3 parks here. We have 5 parks in Central Florida, which means thousands and thousands of our people live and work here. Yes, a few hundred of our employees voted in the OBJ poll, and many did so from computers and other devices that use our servers. I have absolutely no idea why anyone considers this a big deal. When the poll appeared, a lot of people got a Google alert, including me, and a few hundred people voted in support of their company. It is no more mysterious than that." Moving past the grassroots and sustained activism, Blackfish also embedded social action and emotion into their story, cited by the Huffington Post. As I noted in the identification, Tilikum's captivity and SeaWorld's role is where the direct action is placed. As for emotion, there was empathy with the description of maternal bonds and feelings towards captivity and isolation. Cal Perthwaite decided to focus on Tilikum as a central character instead of statistics, which made the film very powerful. Some social action has been made. Starting in April 2014, California state lawmakers proposed legislation that called for a ban of California's aquatic parks from featuring orcas in their performance. It was not passed, but it garnered serious media coverage. Later in June 2014, a bipartisan amendment to an appropriations bill approving $1 million for scientific study examining the impact of captivity on marine life was passed. The documentary Blackfish spurred a broader public discussion over whether the conditions in which marine animals, particularly orcas, are held for public display are humane and whether these animals should even be held in captivity, said Representative Adam Schiff, who co-sponsored the amendment. "I have serious concerns about the psychological and physical harm to orcas and other large marine mammals in captivity." To note, political contributions and spending after the release of Blackfish doubled for SeaWorld, giving 30 Democrats and Republicans in the House and 5 Senate campaigns donations, citing the Washington Post. SeaWorld gave money to 2 U.S. California senators, except for Schiff and amendment co-sponsor Representative Jared Huffman. Then in 2015, California Coastal Commission, a state agency that oversees land use and public access, moved to ban orca breeding at SeaWorld in San Diego. In addition, the U.S. House of Representatives and lawmakers in Sacramento have proposed legislation to phase out orca captivity. All of this impact is measurable. The organic and organized social action through digital and physical response, the constant media coverage not only from CNN but other outlets, the accessible financial data of a publicly traded company, and the coined term, the Blackfish effect. SeaWorld, since announcing in March that they will end breeding and their theatrical shows, has made some serious strides forward. They've come to terms that American attitudes about orcas have changed dramatically, said by the LA Times. For one, cited by the Huffington Post, the ads SeaWorld presents later in 2016, in the wake of their announcement to stop their orca breeding program and phase out their theatrical performances, are much more in harmony with the rhetorical appeals to Blackfish. The new approach directly shifts from fact-heavy, reason-based arguments to center instead on well-being of the whales. The park aligns itself now with its former foes on the side of change and professes a willingness to bear the expense of continuing to support the killer whales, while eliminating the revenue stream the audience knows are linked to the orcas.
Mr. Chairman, for decades there's been a growing debate among marine biologists and other professionals over maintaining marine mammals in captivity. But it was last year's release of the documentary Blackfish that spurred a broader public discussion over whether the conditions in which marine mammals, particularly orcas, are held for public display are humane, and whether these animals should be even held in captivity. I have serious concerns about the psychological and physical harm to orcas and other large marine mammals in captivity. Isolating these animals, which can travel hundreds of miles in a day in the wild and which live in large, complex social groupings in a small enclosure, is troubling. There's substantial evidence that orcas in captivity live much shorter lives than those in the wild and display high levels of stress and aberrant and sometimes dangerous behavior. 2 weeks ago, Representative Huffman and I, along with 38 of our colleagues, sent a letter to the Department of Agriculture urging them to move forward with the rulemaking regarding conditions of captivity for marine mammals under Animal Welfare Act. 20 years ago, the department recognized the need to revise regulations, and 10 years ago, the department proposed such a rulemaking and received many public comments. But since then, progress has stalled despite public outcry about this issue. Our amendment would serve to kickstart that effort by providing $1 million for the Animal Health Inspection Service to study the effect of captivity on large marine mammals so that USDA can follow through with proposing a rule that is long overdue. Among the issues that would benefit from an unbiased examination by APHIS are the effects of captivity on the longevity of marine mammals, whether they suffer from physical and mental maladies at a higher rate than animals in the wild, and whether they display unnatural and unhealthy behaviors indicating high levels of stress. The findings of this study will inform the USDA's consideration of reopening a rulemaking process which could result in scientifically based regulations that ensure humane conditions for these awe-inspiring animals.
SeaWorld has announced that their theatrical shows will change to more of natural tendencies of the mammals in the wild, hoping to do so by 2019. The trainers will have even less interaction with the animals in front of the public. It was not said if it would change behind the scenes. In addition, they have sought lucrative partnerships. SeaWorld has partnered with the Humane Society of the United States to end commercial whaling, sea hunts, shark finning, and overall ocean pollution, cited by the LA Times. The Humane Society commented they consider SeaWorld to be one of the largest rescue organizations in the world. SeaWorld will bring in unable marine animals and will also begin to serve only sustainable seafood. The Humane Society helped to push against the release of orcas in captivity into the wild. They noted that most were born in captivity or have spent most of their lives at SeaWorld. Referencing history, they noted that Kiko, the whale from Free Willy, who was born in the wild when re-released after filming, concluded was a failure. Along with the partnership, they dedicated a lot of funds to research relating to the study of marine mammals, more specifically $220,000 in 2014. They also admitted in August 2014 that Blackfish was partially to blame for the company's recent financial woes. They have since downgraded their credit with Standard & Poor's. To note, Calperthwaite had no prior connection to animal activism or knowledge of the topic. To IndieWire.com, she called herself a student of the issue. She also asked several times for an interview with SeaWorld for the film, but after they declined 6 months after the offer, she realized that they would only be on the defensive. All of the images in the documentary were bought, vetted, or fair use. Moving forward, President Joe Manby does not oppose backing the new policy to breed or capture orcas with legislation, according to PETA.org. They have also installed larger tanks for the animals and decreased the amount of chemicals in the waters, but to still reflect safety precautions for both the mammals and the trainers. Mass media was the main vehicle of Blackfish's success. According to Angela Gallo's dissertation on documentary film and video and social change, the disruption of the image in the minds of the audience is the primary and most effective strategy of social change. SeaWorld has a far way to go. As said before, the legislation only reaches as far as the U.S. borders. At Laurel Parque, where Tillicum killed his first victim, and the Canary Islands at Sealand, just a week ago this year, an orca was captured on video slamming its head into the tank wall. It was posted on social media and went viral within hours. Unfortunately, SeaWorld will continue to have to combat these situations for years to come. Blackfish had a powerful impact. It truly owns up to its term, the Blackfish effect. It will continue to affect the multi-million-dollar industry of aquatic parks and the making of documentaries for decades ahead of us. I hope you learned the power of documentaries and social change, specifically within Blackfish. Thanks for watching.